I have to say, that is the best pledge of allegiance I think I've heard yet. Okay, so,
We finally got it together for you.
It's about time after 4 years, I'll tell you what.
We're a little slow, but
so we've got, Tim actually had a last minute situation that he had to attend with, so he's not here today. But he's always here in spirit though, right?
yes, I got several texts.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, we're looking for a motion to approve minutes for the 13th of December and the 18th of December.
Move to approve.
And I'll second that.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yep.
Aye. And Dave,
Okay, I'm going to report first on financials from December 20th, Resolution 18-171, as was authorized by the board earlier this year. So for December 20th, I approved appropriation transfers from prosecutor, JFS, and engineer's office into their OPERS accounts. I approved the appropriations transfer from the commissioner's operating transfers into capital transfers, and transfer from the contingency account to the auditor's elected official salary account. And then cash transfer was made from the general fund to DES for the 2018 funding based on the per capita requirement under the ORC. That was the highlights of the financials I approved on December 20th. And then the next item, I'm putting an item that I approved on December 26th, as was authorized by you earlier in the year. On December 26th, for the Airport Authority, I acknowledge and approve reimbursement request number 2 for FAA grant project number 3-39-0054-020-2018 to install runway 1128 lighting, taxiway connector lighting, install runway 1129 end identifier lights, install precision approach path indicator, and install beacon and lighted wind cone in the amount of $10,288.30, which was $9,259 FAA portion, $1,029.30 ODOT portion with no local county match.
okay. Mr. Adrian, how are you?
Good.
Okay, today's financials include a transfer and supplemental de-appropriations from various departments to balance out their year-end revenues and appropriations. There are cash transfers from JFS and Water Resources to balance out year-end revenues in the workforce investment and county sewer improvement funds. There are no new encumbrances or encumbrance changes or vouchers. There's several revenue certifications, one from JFS and their workforce investment fund, and 2 revenue decertifications from the Commissioner's Office and the Airport Construction Fund, and from Community Development in their block grant fund for revenues not received in 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Schmidt?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you. And county engineer?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Item 6 on the agenda is requesting the board execute the final change order for our annual polyester pavement markings in 2018. It was an increase of about $6,400. Comes with, we changed up our scope, at the beginning of the year, and then we also added some striping in for areas where after we did our crack sealing, our maintenance crack sealing, it covered up center lines, so that increased the...
So can I ask you a question? What do you, and if you don't know offhand, but I know it's quite a bit. How much do we pay for like us pavement stripes for the whole county, the striping?
We do, right now our current schedule is about 1/3 of the county roads a year. So we do about 80 miles a year. So, and it runs about $175 for polyester for that material a year. So it's 1/3 of our material, 1/3 of our roads.
So somebody had brought to my attention, I guess it made sense, is that like, what do we have as far as checks and balances to make sure that we're getting what we're paying for? And the reason is I understand the length, but at the same time I look at a lot of the pavement striping, you'll have a road that just gets striped in one winter and it's like nothing was even there.
Mhm.
But what I had a conversation with somebody over the weekend that said that's the most common thing of shortcuts, I guess, in the world of line striping, that this actually, guy used to do this for a living, is increasing the speed of the vehicle that's moving. And it looks like it's done, you know, you got a fresh line, but the thickness of the line of what you paid for is half of what you paid for. So like, what do we have in place as far as on the engineer side of it to make sure that we actually are getting what we're paying for?
We actually, a couple things that we do, we actually retrace over top of them. We follow behind them after they're done. We do receive their data reporting log systems out of the equipment
Okay.
daily. So when they stripe today, they'll send us, as soon as they're done for the day, it almost comes email right to us so we can calculate how much paint was used based on their equipment. The calibration, they send that to us.
Okay.
How much glass beads were used, you know, so we can keep track of that.
So it is something that you guys are aware of and watched?
Yeah, yes, we do actually. There's been times where we'll actually go back out and remeasure and they'll miss a couple or the distance is off, so.
Okay.
That's part of our checks and balances at the engineer's office.
Because I never thought about that, and then, you know, when you sand it, it's like, you know, if you increase your speed by 5 miles an hour, sure, you're laying the line down still, but how good is that line gonna be and how thick is it gonna be? Yeah, so,
The longevity of the materials, you know, in Geauga County depend a lot on, you know, in the middle field area, you know, our edge lines get wiped out pretty quick, and that's due to the buggies. So
Okay.
those were in areas like Nauvoo Road, Georgia Road. We're restriping that road almost every year,
well,
just because the hoof prints are just ripping up that. In areas where we still use a cinder mix in our salt, that cinder is like a sandpaper. So that sands off that striping,
I
you know,
see.
when it plows. If you go into Bainbridge area, you'll see they use a lot more salt. That striping holds up a lot more because you don't have that abrasion. So every road, we drive it every year, check them. Sometimes we have to do a road more often than not.
yep.
But that's why we continue with an annual program. We used to do them every other year, prior to about, you know, say 2010, 11, and 12.
Yeah.
We were receiving a grant that we could do half our roads every other year. We
I
no
see.
longer receive that grant, so we've stretched it. Some of our roads we're doing every 3 years.
About a third a year, okay.
Yeah, so we try to do a third of our roads a year.
Okay, well, thanks for answering that. So do we have a motion? Second.
Commissioner Nicol?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
We're here requesting approve and execute a resolution declaring county property surplus and directing the sale to Morgan County, Ohio.
For vehicles, is it? Okay.
Yeah, we got a call about a week and a half ago. They totaled one of the cars that we sold.
Oh, no, she's a,
And they asked if we had another one that was ready to go to auction, so that's all this is going.
sounds good. Do we have a motion on that, Skip? Already, Stan, I'll second that.
Commissioner Nicol? Commissioner Smith?
Yes. Thank you, have a good,
Good morning.
good morning.
So I'm here this morning for our Elder Care Legal Services Agreement with Shraff Thomas. Western Reserve Area Agency on Aging, they did the RFP for this. So what Shraff and Thomas did was they lowered their fees for the elder services. And then Western Reserve provides a small stipend in return. I do have to say, Chrissy, I apologize. I did not look at the agenda until this morning.
Okay.
It is $100.42, I believe.
Oh, yeah,
So I
got
just
it.
did want to correct that for you.
Gotcha.
So we would like to
She's seen
continue.
it.
Number 8.
Okay, not on here though.
Yeah,
Okay.
I apologize, I didn't catch that yesterday. So we'd like to continue on with this service for 2019.
Yeah, and I thank you for getting back with us too and looking into all the different options on that, thanks.
Oh, no problem, that's my
Yeah.
job.
So do we have a motion on that? Second?
Commissioner Nicol? Commissioner Smith?
Right. Thank you. Okay, We have,
Already
job.
handled this.
Yes, sir. Okay.
And this week, I was supposed to have it on, we were having this on last week's agenda, but I pulled it from them because I wanted to clarify what this was.
Okay.
This is JFS's, they're updating their classification list for their employees. They're adding a few positions for their child advocacy center, so they can be ready when they're ready to move forward with that. They get the grant money. We've already done the financials for that, to put the fund in place. And then, so that's the 2 CAC specialists, and then the part-time drivers. And then they've added, they took off a bunch of positions that they no longer utilize, and they're adding in a second HR position to kind of give them a little clarity, abilities in that position, so.
Okay, sounds good.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bickle? Mrs. Blair?
Aye. Thanks, Jerry.
Nice to tie you.
Good morning.
Sorry, I bring my bow tie.
That's right. You're out of uniform now.
Yeah, I'm out of uniform. So we have 3 motions before the board this morning from Water Resources. The first one is a request to increase the illegal stormwater connection fees from $40 per unit per bill to $200 per unit per bill, which is $20 to $100 per month. And it would be effective with the April-May statement. And the reason we're requesting that is the connections are illegal and residents aren't making the required repairs, so instead of defaulting straight to litigation, would like to increase the fee to compel compliance. Right now, 6 residents are paying that fee, but that could go up as we do smoke testing here in the next few months.
So just to clarify, that would be where somebody is tying into, is putting their,
Downspouts going into the sewage lines.
Okay.
Breaks in the sewage lines on their property where runoff is flowing into. And it's causing us problems, especially in the Chagrin Heights areas, where the Chagrin Village sewage plant is getting increasing storm overflows.
and as far as that amount of increase, which it seems like it's a fairly good amount, but at the same time, if somebody is in violation of this, you guys give them an opportunity to correct it before this amount is given?
The 6 we have been paying for 4 years the fee, because it's cheaper to pay the fee than having that.
I see.
So if you want to look at.
No, I
those-
understand. So then I see what you're saying, that this is just like a regular practice. It's almost like just another utility bill that they're paying.
Yeah, so you gotta get up
keep
to
that.
where it starts to compel them to
Right.
fix it.
I see.
But we will contact them before that goes into effect.
Okay.
We're not going to just immediately, it would, with the April-May bill, so.
Yeah. And I don't think it's unreasonable in the sense that I know, talking with Jerry, how many times, this is a problem that it puts to the plants and tasks and everything, so.
Well, the plans, and then we send out the crews to verify the work was done, and if
Yeah.
it wasn't done, we have to re-smoke, and it's time
Okay.
intensive, and it costs us.
What happens when they don't pay, or if they don't pay?
Well, then I work with Susan at the prosecutor's office, litigation, or we can move to shut their water off or shut their sewage.
I didn't know if it got attached to a lien or something.
Like it eventually
The
be on the
fees,
property tax
fees will
bill.
go on the property taxes eventually.
Because I'm assuming that some of the folks that are in that area, $200 is a chunk of change for them. They might want to ignore that and try that and see how that works for
Well,
them.
we'll ratchet up the pressure. But it's not really pecuniary we're worried about, it's about the wear and tear on the lines, and then, we pay for the flow that goes into Chagrin.
Right.
So I think this, with the change in the water resources, it's a good time to start making some.
And as was said, this isn't the first action.
No.
So there's warnings, there's notices, there's.
Smoke testing,
And so this is,
inspectors
at the end of the day,
out.
a stinging to try and get compliance, so.
Yes, sir.
So, some of,
Second.
Commissioner Claypool?
yep.
Mrs. Blair?
Right.
Our next motion is to approve and authorize the President of the Board to execute the Ohio Water Development Authority Fund payout request number 3 for the Bainbridge trunk main relocation in the amount of $160,810. This is the third of 4 disbursements from OD, from that water account.
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
And then concomitant with that would be requesting the president of the board to execute the OPWC, Ohio Public Works Commission, Appendix C disbursement request form and certification number 3 for the Bainbridge Trunk Main relocation project, and the other 50% amount of $160,810.
So moved.
Second that.
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Spillier?
Aye. Thank you. Yes, sir.
You taking the next one, Dave?
Yeah, I take the next one. So every year, the county undergoes a process under which our costs are analyzed so that we can recover from non-general fund accounts the costs that it takes for general fund departments like the auditor's office, the prosecutor's office, ADP, commissioner's office, to do work on behalf of non-general fund entities. So this company Maximus has been doing this work for the county since before I was here, and the price has not changed the entire time. It's $11,000 a year. And we recover about around $500,000 that non-general fund funds pay into the general fund to help offset the cost of operating and support services.
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Spillier?
Yes.
So
Okay.
there's that.
So the next one will be for the annexation in Middlefield. So who's the parties with that want to come up? John, you want to come up here? Or? So, good morning. How are you?
I'm great.
Good, good. So, no other developments since the public hearing, no other concerns, no other questions or comments against or for. So, at this point in time, Christie, do you want to just go ahead and read the resolution?
The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board approve and execute Resolution 18174 to grant the petition for the regular annexation of 15 acres of land, permanent parcel number 18-023320 to the Village of Middlefield, Geauga County, Ohio.
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Spillier?
Yes. So, John, good, congratulations. Good.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you guys moving forward on getting this church set up and pushing the word of God, I guess, is even better, right? There.
Appreciate the help of the commissioners and engineers. and
Yep,
It's
absolutely.
a process.
It's not over yet.
All right.
Government moves slow.
There is that. So he's,
The next step is there's a 30-day waiting period, and then the next action is taken by the village.
okay,
So it's
Perfect.
still part of the process.
good. I don't see any hiccups in the whole thing either, so it's good.
No. I think it'll be good. So that's it. Those will get mailed, and once they're finalized, then they'll go out to everybody. And
No, You need to say anything today?
nope, there's nothing for you
He's
to
all
say.
set. Thank
You're
you.
all
Yep.
set.
Right.
Have a
Thank you
good
very
day.
much.
Yes, sir. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
And this one here stays here.
The next two are, I hate to use the term housekeeping, but
Okay.
it's kind of preparation for next year and whatnot. So this is to request the board authorize the county administrator and/or assistant county administrator to the authority to execute in case of a lack of quorum of commissioners and/or if session is canceled on a regular financial day or on a day when financials need to be approved, require approvals for county financials on behalf of the board during the year 2019 as authorized by ORC 305.30, and which duty shall be performed under the direction and supervision of the commissioners.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Spillier?
Hey.
And this is, like what I did the last couple of years, is to set the 2019 regular meeting schedule that's been adjusted to accommodate meetings around holidays and on the second Tuesday for the planning commission to start at 9:30. So at least this kind of sets the calendar for everybody for the meeting schedule for the year. And then if we have to make any changes, they'll be done by motion
Yep.
in session.
Simple enough. Second.
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Spillier?
Right. Okay, so we have here, Commissioner's Office is requesting the board move into executive session for the purpose of discussing possible discipline of a public employee.
And we'd like to have Laura LaChapelle's here, and Gary Morgan, and me, and there may be others called in later, depending on what you guys want to do.
Okay.
All right?
So do I have a motion?
Second.
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Spillier?
Aye. Alrighty.
Good morning.
Hey, how are you guys?
I don't know what you guys brought, but I brought some.
Is this for? Oh, he erased your comments.
I didn't erase them, that was just a pre-picture, that's all. Okay.
Are we,
Yep, we're ready to go.
oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Mr. Lennon is not here today.
Okay.
So you don't, he's not here today.
Oh, wait a minute. Did that one.
Do you want the chairs?
Sir.
Are you sure?
Actually, yeah, fine, actually.
Okay. All set then, Skip?
Mm-hmm.
We have the one body sheet.
Which sheet?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. See on the camera.
Yep, all set.
Well, again, thank you for having us again. We appreciate it. We're here to kind of update you on where we're at from the last meeting we had, which was a couple months ago, I think. And at that meeting, if you remember, we presented some site layouts based upon our programming efforts, showing you options for renovation versus new construction, and we showed new construction in two different ways, all on one site and split into two sites, and we gave you estimated construction costs at that time. We presented with a PowerPoint and we shared that information with you. Since then, you've authorized us to move into the next phase of our contract. And the first part of that was discussing or showing you options for construction delivery methods. And we emailed you a document about 2 weeks ago. I have copies here if you'd like to have one in front of you. I could go through that real quick.
Thank you.
So we've discussed in the past that there's more than one way to skin a cat in terms of how a building or how a project is designed and then constructed. And there's what we've laid out is four different ways that are pretty much industry standard at this point. And I'll go through them briefly. Of course, if you have questions, feel free to ask. Starting with the to the left, we call it design, bid, build. That is for many years been sort of the industry standard for how a project gets delivered to an owner and then constructed. And that really means exactly what the title says. The architect designs the project, does all the construction documents, completes everything that's needed from a drawing and specification standpoint, and then the project goes out for bid, and general contractors review the documents, usually a 30-day period, and then they submit sealed bids to the county. And then those bids are opened publicly, and usually the low bidder, unless they are found to be non-responsive, the low bidder wins the project. So design, bid, build. And then from there, the winning contractor constructs the project based upon the documents. At that time, the architects, meaning us, would act in a administrative role. We would come out to the site once a week, we'd attend the weekly meetings, we would review RFIs and shop drawings, and we would just confirm that the project is getting constructed per the contract documents. But the general contractor is basically in charge of the construction at that point. So that's sort of been the industry standard for many years. A number of years ago, some things changed with how the laws are written and how government agencies can procure projects. So there's two methods here. I'll go to the second one, construction manager as agent. So the way this project method works is that as an architect is hired, an owner, meaning yourself, would also hire a construction manager at the same time. They would hold a contract with you, and we would hold a contract with you. They'd be independent of each other. And they would oversee and sort of manage the project. They would manage the schedule. They would run estimates as we continue our design process. So they would be an oversight to the project, and then they would handle the bidding as well. Having a construction manager as agent on board gives you an opportunity, if you wanted to put out some early bid packages and maybe speed the process along a little bit. So if you wanted to get out an early site package or foundation package, gives you the advantage of potentially getting some work started while we're finishing the detailed construction documents. So it can speed things up a little bit. The construction manager as agent has no risk financially to the project. They're getting paid a percentage of the construction cost, and they handle the project from beginning through the end when the ribbon is cut and you move in. But it's sort of a project oversight for an owner. And depending on the size of the project, sometimes it becomes very useful. This would be a big project as well. That sort of morphed into the third option here, which is called construction manager at risk, CMR. In this scenario, it's a little different. Again, you hire an architect, they're under contract with the county, and then you hire a CMR as well, they're under contract with the county. But they take on a different role. They're going to be at risk. They're going to actually become the contractor and build the project. They're going to, as we move into construction documents, we move closer to the end of those construction documents, they're going to have been working with prime contractors along the way, helping them get pricing, helping them understand what the cost of the project would be. Typically about the point where we're about 75 or 80% done with our construction documents, they are going to give you a GMP, a guaranteed maximum price. And then they are at risk from that point forward to deliver the project to you for that GMP. So it takes some of the burden off of you. They're now at risk. You're not going out to bid like you were in the design bid build. They're going out for their own bids with all of their own bid packages throughout the course of that. And again, at usually about the 80% levels when they give you a guaranteed maximum price. So there's advantages there in terms of that. They're now not only managing the project, but they're at risk for getting it built for the price that they guaranteed you for. And then the final method we've shown here is a design build. This one is different in the fact that in this scenario, you would hire an architect to deliver a set of a set of drawings up to about a 30% complete level. We call it schematic design, or we call it criteria documents. Then you would put out an RFP for a contractor to deliver a project in a design build method. That contractor would hire his own architect. He would be under control of that contractor. And they would take our criteria documents and they would finish the package and deliver a project to you. The one disadvantage there is now you don't have a contract directly with the architect that's finishing the project. The contractor does. So you have a little bit less contact than at that point with that architect. They're hired by the contractor. We, as the criteria architect, would follow the project through for you. We would almost turn into an owner's rep at that point. So we would review the design builder's drawings as they go through the process. Once they finish them, we would do reviews and submit comments. And then we would also be involved during construction as well. So you would have us as architects, and you would have the design builder's architects involved, and we would be an oversight to them. So they're all, they're all very different. They all have their pros and cons, which we've listed some on this document here. So that was part of what we were asked to provide to you in terms of our contract, and one of the steps or the tasks, and I don't remember which number, but was to explain to you what what delivery methods are available in a project of this scope and size.
So a quick question for you. So I think there's probably another column that could be added to this,
Okay.
and that is a lease arrangement. So somebody builds it, and
Yeah.
then we lease it from them. They build it on their own accord. And then we provide the criteria or what we're looking for at the end of the day. But they build it and we lease it for a 50-year term and it's ours at the end of the term, that sort of thing. I don't know what that's technically called in your vernacular, but there's an advantage to that in that it accelerates the project in many cases. And they don't have to comply with many of the rules we have to comply with, and that is, like prevailing wage, so on and so forth. So they can deliver a project maybe move faster and more cost-effectively than some of these options. So I'd like for you to comment on that.
Well, we were going to actually touch into that more when we started talking about financing, but that is correct, and maybe I could introduce Tracy at this point.
Well, real quick, good morning.
Good morning. Haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah,
You've been hiding from us.
Yeah, well, you're in good hands, so.
Yep, we are.
So I just, yes, you're right, there is another option. It's known as a P3, public-private partnership. And we're going to get into that in the financing options. Still, there would be some form of delivery method even through that would resemble one of these. But certainly, your arrangement or agreement would be different because you'd be possibly going into a partnership with, let's say, a developer, somebody that would own the building. So we saw that more on the finance side, a form of delivery for sure, but certainly it would affect your entire relationship and how you finance the project. So we're going to talk about that in a minute.
I do want to say, irregardless of that, though, understand that there still is the design period that has to occur. Something has to be designed and developed and drawn to construction document level, irregardless of who's constructing it. And in that case, it would be a developer. But there's still that period of time we talked about it previous that something has to. You need something to build from. So.
Right.
Yeah, so you would still want a structure put together no matter who the ownership would be under, and these are viable options.
So, and as we talked, and we drew some drawings in my whiteboard in my office, part of the challenge when you work through governmental building projects like this is the timelines tend to be extended because of all the goofy rules you have to follow. And so sometimes, I'll use the P3 as an example, those things can be accelerated, so what might take 2 years to build might take a year and a half or a year or whatever. So you might find ways to accelerate the ultimate delivery. And that's where I'd like to, within the context of all of this.
Okay, we'll get into that then.
Consider how the acceleration, this can be accelerated, and what the trade-offs. There's always pros and cons to that, right?
Okay, so there's one thing to keep in mind with the CMR method of delivery. It does give you the option to accelerate. So because you're going to basically have somebody on board from the beginning, even providing a pre-construction service, and that would be the CMR, they would have the ability to begin early bid packages. Let's say site, usually we see shell, it could be concrete, it could be steel, it could be the entire shell, as we're still designing the interior, the mechanical and electrical systems. So there is a way of expediting even under one of these methods.
Would you say CMA also? With the CMR, the only thing with the CMR, and I see the same thing with the P3, so the CMR and the P3 are kind of in the same category, higher risk, higher cost.
Yep.
And so at the end of the day, when you're doing a P3, you have to bake in a profit for the company who's actually owning the building, so over the term, they're going to gain some profit. We'd have to figure out what that is and if it's appropriate and so forth. And if the acceleration is worth the cost. Same thing with the CMR. They're going to take ownership, or not ownership, but they take ownership of the project. Yep. And so because of that, there's higher risk for them. Yep. And so they're going to build in a little fat because of the risk. I see the CMA as like a CMR, but it reduces the risk because they don't have to promise delivery at a cost, right?
That's right. They have no risk involved.
Right.
And
so-
you're right, they can expedite, so that's why you see prime bidders. So they would bid this with multiple primes. And so they could do it at any schedule that we agree on. They could certainly go out with early prime packages or do it all at one time. So you're right, both of those would give you an option to expedite. But because you brought up other ownership options, I think this is a good segue, unless, Ken, you have something else to add to the delivery.
No, unless there's any other questions on these four options, I think it's a perfect segue to start talking about the financing.
Okay, as you know, we partnered with CBRE to help us with the financial deliverable of this contract, and Dave is here to
So if I could
CBRE.
take a moment, our original team member left our company and left me kind of in a lurch.
Okay.
And I'd like to introduce Tracy Nichols, who you probably all know her reputation as Development Director for the City of Cleveland. She now works for a division of Thompson Hine, managing public financing projects and construction projects. And they are very deep in Cleveland, and we were grateful for her assistance to come to this meeting on very short notice.
Thank you.
And changes of personnel can always be a bit of a challenge.
Geauga County doesn't have the deep pockets. Get out right away.
But you have a good credit rating.
So, thank you for having me today, and I want you to know I have relatives who live out in this area, so I'm very familiar with Geauga, and it's a beautiful place. So I come to the table, our team, project management consultants, we work with municipalities all across the country. And we work on a number of construction projects from, we're particularly well known for doing very large stadium projects, hotels, convention center hotels. But we've also done municipal headquarters, and we worked on Geauga County's headquarters, which is that P3 model that you discussed. And what we do is we do two different things. We do the finance. We work a lot on what type of financing is available, how to get the finance, what is the bonds going to look like, and also evaluating these different methodologies and what they're actually going to cost you. We also can serve as owner's rep, which means we're the people that, despite who you pick, the person that you can always rely on the construction end to help you understand what's going on and what the problems are, and to be there should there be any litigation at the end. But on the finance part, on P3, what ends up happening is this: you still have to do an RFP or RFQ. So there is a requirement, you're a government entity, so you'll have to pick the developer you want to partner with. And so we can help you with that RFP and RFQ process, what you're going to need to have in there, discuss it. You've got a very good layout done by Boland that kind of explains what you want. And so if you went to P3, you would then say, here's what we're looking for. You might have an architectural drawing done first, and say, okay, here's the architect, we need you to go forward. That's a relatively fast process compared to other bidding methodologies. You ask people to put together the information, you're going to interview each of those people who come in who want to build your project, and then you're going to make a selection. We'll help you evaluate which one seems to have the best cost for what you want to do. The way it works is you're agreeing to have a lease. They will then have a lease-back revenue bond, and that's what they're going to use to build the building. So it's not your direct credit that's being utilized. So that's good for you. But it's a little bit higher cost. As you described, any developer is going to have a little bit of profit built in because that's what they do. Where you can also save some money, for example, Geauga County, the entire building is managed by the developer. So you could either manage the building yourselves or it can be managed by the developer. Well, that saved the Geauga County quite a bit of money on personnel costs, even on just buying stuff like toilet paper. They said their costs have gone down remarkably just for the ability for the private sector to be involved in some of those transactions. So, so there's a little bit of a cost savings there. You pay a rent. So now the way you come up with the rent is all through negotiation, because as you said, it could be anywhere from 25 to 50 years that you're renting. The county's at $26, 26 years, excuse me, and at the end of the 26-year period, the county gets the building for $1. And that's how these P3 operations work. The goal is, when you pay off the debt, you pay off the cost of the project, then at the end, $1, the building is yours, they turn it over to you, and from that moment forward, it is your property. Yes?
Good question for you, on a
Sure.
PT thing. We, the county, can do this, or
Yes.
we, the Port Authority, can do this. Your
Whoever,
comment on that?
yeah.
Because the bid process, does the bid process change? We don't have a Port Authority, we do have a CIC, and it operates similar to that. Does the process change by the Ohio Revised Code if you're doing it directly versus doing it through a Port Authority or another third party?
Well, it doesn't matter who's gonna own your administration building. And as far as Ohio Revised Code, I believe it's any public entity can go through this process as a P3. So.
But a
and
nonprofit, we have a nonprofit, we the county have a nonprofit
The
called
CIC.
And so the nonprofit, we could transfer property to the CIC, let them take care of all the process, they can be our agent in this process.
As long as you are supporting, it's your great, you guys have great credit. You've done a great job running your county, you have excellent credit, you should be very proud of that, everyone in this room should know that's a great thing. Okay, I work in a lot of places, it's not always the case. So you have great credit, so as long as it's you going to be leasing, you, the county, are doing the leasing, then that should allow any entity to be able to get the required revenue bond. So the developer, as long as they know you're leasing it, whoever has it in the end, who is going to get it for $1, I don't think it matters as much, and whoever oversees the process, it'd be the guaranteed lease from the county that is going to make the deal possible for anyone coming in and wanting to do a P3 project.
The curiosity, I happen to be the chairman for the Waste Management District, and we're in the process of looking at a new development project. There's no bid process required because it's a Waste Management District. They got some
Right.
goofy forgiveness under the Ohio Revised Code, they don't have to bid.
Right.
And so I didn't know if that same kind of forgiveness was available through a Port Authority or through the CIC.
Actually, I just looked at this for another community, and the CIC does not have to go through the same type of process that a municipality does have to do. The community in the end decided that they wanted to go through the process, the
Yeah, it may make sense,
RFP, so that they would have more say over what's happening. But a CIC technically does not have the requirements that municipal government, a county or whatever does.
Yeah.
Port Authority is a quasi-government agency, so that I'd have to really read that, sir, to be honest with you, double check it. But I did just go through a similar thing on a CIC, and that's a Community Improvement Corporation. And so that does have a little bit of different treatment, so it could expedite it even more. And obviously, I'm sure that the commissioners do have appointments to that board.
So we have it done by July of next year?
That's a little bit fast, but, you know.
Okay, we could live with September, October.
It depends on the contractor, developer that you pick, because you're gonna need someone, and you're gonna need weather to cooperate. This is Northeast Ohio, and we do have this thing called winter. I like to point that out to people, and on good winters, we can work, and in bad winters, we sometimes get a little slowed down. But that's the P3 process, is you go through this process, and it's slightly more expensive for you, but it usually expedites the process, and you know, it's something that definitely can be looked at, and I think that Ken did a great job. This handout showing the 4 different methodologies is one of the best I've ever seen, to be honest, guys, so.
So if you were to estimate the percentage increase in cost, would it be 5%, 10%?
I have to really run numbers, that's what we do for a living, is look at all these different methodologies and come up with the cost. Because not only does the developer have to make the profit, you've got a really great bond rating. The fact that they have to go to the market now and get their own financing, their financing's probably gonna be a little bit higher than yours, even though you're the lessee who's gonna be paying the rent. They're still gonna have a little bit different when they go to the market. But the good news is that, you know, the bond market, you know, it's really not looking, it's still looking pretty good. We're not seeing huge volatility there. But I'd say that you want to get moving on your project sooner rather than later.
Did you see with Cleveland, and by the way, you're very good. I mean, I'm very impressed. She had no problems with all the goofy questions that I asked.
You can ask me all the questions you want.
That's quite a
That's it.
statement.
With Cleveland, you probably ran some analysis on a P3 versus something else. And so you saw a difference in cost. Was that difference in cost 5%, 10%, 20%? I know what my guess would be, but.
I'd like to say that I could memorize every one of my projects, but I cannot tell you that I have that memorized, but I could look it up and get back to you on it.
Okay.
Because I'm sure we have it.
So we can take a look at like do SWOT analysis on each of these four options and say, okay, cost relative, and we don't have exact numbers, but you can
Yeah.
take pretty educated guesses because it's what you do.
Right.
Right?
There's two factors. Obviously, the interest rates are always a factor that can change. And the second thing is construction costs. We're in a very volatile time for construction costs. So they've been moving in an upward trend. So that could also be a factor, compared to doing the Geauga building a couple years ago. But we can at least take a look at it for you and just kind of give you a ballpark. I can't tell you that's going to be exactly what you would experience here. But what project management consultants does is really analyze the type of building you're gonna build and what the materials are. We look at everything and really look at what the cost differentials are. Probably have to get a really good understanding. You'll have to be further down the line on design, because we need to know what those materials will be in the structure itself.
Skip, I'd add to that every developer in a P3 is gonna look at the credit, the location, what's my downside risk here differently, and that will affect the rate of return that they require on their investment in the project. And the stronger you are, the less they're willing to take, the more competitive they're going to be.
And I think with really the strength of your credit, I mean, people will probably be very interested in being a part of your project. So.
And we're a great county, why wouldn't they?
Well, I'm telling you, people would be very, very excited about working on a project like this. So I think you'd have a lot of developers interested, and that's really the big thing. The more choices you have, then that drives your costs down too.
So what about, Tracy, if you could speak to the more traditional method?
Well, on the more traditional method, your costs will be a little bit lower. You have a great bond rating, so you're gonna have some of the best rates. It will hit your financial statements, so obviously, the one thing, when people say to me, well, if we can get it lower, why don't we just go this way? Once, you have a certain amount of debt, you may not be able to take on additional debt for other projects. And so that's why the P3 method is sometimes very interesting to some people. But your cost is gonna be lower because you don't have that developer profit built in. Your rates will be slightly lower generally. And so that's why I always say you should run all the numbers and take a look and just really decide what is best for your community. Not every community has the type of bond rating that you have. So these four methodologies and P3, there's 5 ways to go. The best thing to do is really take a look and analyze them. And you can analyze both how long will it take, what is the cost. It's a little bit, when you're doing a P3, you've got more legal costs too because you've got a lot more documents. So there's a lot more agreements.
So where do we need to be in the timeline in order for you to do the analysis you just talked about?
Well, we can do an initial analysis at this point because these guys have done a good job of coming up with a basic cost. But as you get further down, once you get to architectural, and then you're ready to go out and ask.
So you can
people.
run some basic scenarios right now.
Can I offer that, volunteer your services, that we run a model of both scenarios with the information we have to date. So we do have a hard cost estimate that we've prepared. It doesn't include a lot of the soft costs and things like that, which both methods would be slightly different. But if we asked Tracy to plug those numbers in each scenario, just for comparison, sake, because she's right, even for us to confirm the construction cost, we first need to know the quarter that we'd be building in, or bidding in, let's say, and we would need, obviously, a design and then more detail and specifications. But I think we have enough information where you can run 2 models that would give them a good comparison at least.
And don't forget, all this, there's two sides of the next design question. What are your interior finishes gonna be? How do you want the building to look? And how's that gonna impact their initial estimates? And do you have the capacity to supervise the project yourselves? And are you gonna be better off or worse off given somebody from the outside who can take it over and turn it over and deliver it to you wrapped in a bow?
Well, that's part of the discussion I think that needs to be had.
Right.
I'll be sitting out there yelling at the guys that are sitting up here doing that. But I think that you know, we need to start getting some numbers on the table, because I'm going to beat those numbers up a little bit. You know, the number I thought was a little high for what it was, and there's ways to mitigate that cost. We have square footage that we don't necessarily need to build. There's different approaches that we have in order to take care of certain of the offices that are currently in 470 and so on and so forth. So we can beat those numbers up a little bit and get that into the realm of reason for us, and then start playing around with what's the best delivery method.
And I'll just point out, just like Geauga County, the site of their former building, they were able to utilize that for another purpose, so there's revenues that can come off your existing sites that can help you offset your costs. So being able to utilize your, you know, what will be your former sites, could be a very big bonus for the project.
Yeah, we could trade this whole complex to the contractor.
Well, actually, that's not out of the realm of feasibility.
I know.
But then it gets to somebody that's gotta be really local, greater Cleveland, Northeast Ohio, who understands Geauga County, the market dynamics out here. It's not the same as trading it in downtown Cleveland or in Solon or Glen Willow, where there's lots of activity. The activity out here is a lot slower, so that's increasing the risk that the developer's gonna take on to accept that. That may be just an easy trade-off, rather than you taking the time for us to go out and sell these properties, which might take a couple of years, which I guarantee you will take a couple of years.
Right. You could put that in your RFP as an option.
Yep.
Say, we want you to tell us, if you were doing a P3, you'd say, we want you to tell us what it would cost to build us this, blah, 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 but you could also say, tell us what you would pay us to take our land. And so that's something that you could include as part of your RFP. Or if you have a particular piece of property, you have an idea what you want to use, you can put that in there. We want this to be used for X. We hope this will be used for, you know, light manufacturing or create jobs or whatever. You can put that in your RFP and see what people come back with. I mean, it's one way to look at your cost as being potentially lower, is by saying, well, we've got real estate, you know, tell us what you think about it.
And it's an easy way to test the market.
You know anybody got IKEA? Because I think this would be great.
I tried that in Cleveland, and it was more difficult than you may imagine.
No, I imagine. Yeah. I've actually talked to them. They have a whole corporate office that they pick. They don't want people coming.
Yeah.
They have a whole plan.
It's a very interesting layout. So.
Going back to your point a couple minutes ago, we talked about this last time we met. You know, the estimates we did are very conceptual. They're based upon square footages, basically. And again, if you're looking at reducing that overall cost, as we talked, you've got to bring down square footage. You know, it's sort of a simple factor there. So until we get further along in the design, we did build in contingency, we built in escalation because they're so conceptual. So there is a little bit of padding in there, but also that padding may go away as time goes on too. So.
Well, and part of the equation, so that everybody understands too, right now, this set of buildings that we have cost us something to own and to operate, right? Yep. And so building new buildings with new technology, more cost effective because of energy efficiency and so on and so forth. So we can get a 30% return just on energy efficiency. So that's money that's out of pocket right now. Okay, so we just take that 30%, we apply it to the new building. We have other cost savings, that part of which you pointed out in your study, and that's efficiencies in terms of management efficiencies and so forth. You know, how many conference rooms do we need? And so we've reduced the number of conference rooms. You have to sweep them, you have to clean them, you have to supply them. And so there's costs baked into our current scenario. We got to go through this mental exercise now saying, okay, all this money's out of pocket today. we're just transferring how we're spending it. And we're gonna better utilize that and benefit from that. So we haven't gone through that exercise yet, to really figure out, okay, we're gonna pay for this. I'd like to beat the cost up, that's one way of doing it, get the cost down a little bit. But also look at how we're gonna pay for this, and I'm pretty confident, based on some numbers that I've run, that we're gonna be able to pay for this and not raise taxes for it.
Well, there's space efficiencies that you're going to gain just simply because you're gonna need less restrooms and conference rooms and all those. There's more opportunity to share space. But there's probably labor efficiencies because things are gonna be closer. There's no longer a need to get in a car to go see a department and things like that. So, yeah, you'll experience some of those indirect efficiencies. Well, I guess they would be direct when you're actually experiencing them. But then you gotta also remember, you're right, you're also operating existing buildings that have a cost for energy and things like that. But that's only gonna get higher because they're old buildings. So you gotta remember, it's probably never going to be cheaper to operate these buildings. In fact, they're going to need improvements, they're going to need maintenance. In fact, they may even need redevelopment to appreciate some of those efficiencies that you would have experienced in a new building. So all of that would have to be factored in your decision making, because there's no question that everything about a new building would be more efficient.
So what's the next step?
So I think our next step is to finalize. I think we have now done the assessments, the programming, the concept, did an estimate, a rough estimate, so you get an idea of the magnitude of the project, identified delivery methods. I think what we'd like to do now, if Tracy and Dave agree, we run those two models based on the information we have to date, and that should give you everything to help make a decision that's best for the county on how to move forward. So, and size, possibly location, and method of delivery, and even ownership. So, what would be probably a couple weeks maybe to do that? And
You said run numbers on two options. What are the two options?
So it would be for you to maintain and own the facility. Just, a regular standard project where you're going to finance it and own it and manage the project through one of these methods. And then the second option is going to be the P3 method.
And that would be on a single new facility. Yeah, well,
Yes.
we gave them.
Oh, okay.
We gave
So
them
let's
the
decide
one.
on the.
Yeah, I was gonna
okay,
say
the
we
option.
gave them, a single facility on one site, or we had two new facilities split between two sites,
Okay.
depending on the geographic location. So that's.
We probably wouldn't do it for both.
Yeah, I don't think you need to
Yeah.
do that because it's
It's
easy
just a
mentally.
comparison.
It's a
Yeah.
math
So,
problem.
that's
So you
fine,
can split the
whatever
math
the-
out. That's
Right.
pretty easy to do.
So why don't, could we agree to do it on a new facility, because it's just cleaner?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then that gives you an ability to compare the two options.
And remember, it's just gonna be a rough estimate because it's too early to know the exact financing costs, it's too early to know the exact material costs, we don't have you haven't decided finishes, we don't know what the outside's gonna look like, there are costs that could go up from there. And so I'll just wanna make sure that you're aware of that. We're gonna give you with the best information we have today, but you would rerun those numbers again at a later date once you get further down the process.
And with these four options, you guys would be able to help us to determine what is the best route to go with this. I mean, I see advantages and disadvantages with all of them, but ultimately to put that project together, you guys would be in a position to help us to make the scenarios for each one of which is the best suited
Yeah.
for us.
I mean, we'll give you, they've done a great job laying out what the pros and cons are here, so we can kind of give you a little bit more on cost, but, you have to get to a point where you have to understand, well, you're taking on more risk with some options than with others.
Sure.
And that's something that you have to decide.
But you could help us as far as with your experience and background as far as some of the preferred direction to go into this.
I think we could make a recommendation.
It's like buying a car, right?
Yeah.
So you say, do I use all my cash to buy the car?
Mhm.
Or do I buy my car over a 5-year period and use somebody else's cash? And so it's kind of the same mentality, you know, do we want to suck our bank dry or spread it out over a period of time? It depends on how much you got to pay. So if the
Well,
interest
then what
rate.
else you need to do?
That's
I
right.
mean, that's one of the other things you'll have to make a decision on is, if you do it, if you finance it yourself, that limits your ability to take on other debt for a period of time. So you've got to look at that as well. And that's why off-balance sheet P3 model is sometimes preferable for communities.
It comes down to what's the interest rate, what's the penalty you have to pay.
Yeah, what's the differential?
The carrying cost for whoever's gonna carry that for a while. So.
Right.
Cool. So, do we need to pass a motion or something to give them authorization to do that and move forward?
I don't know what's in their agreement, like what's the steps in the agreement?
No, I think this would, if we move forward with this modeling, that would fulfill our scope of work.
Right.
Under the
Yeah.
contract.
This is kind of the last
Right.
piece of
Yeah.
the
I don't
last
think there's
project.
anything that.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, let's move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think so.
I have one favor to ask of you. And you and I have talked, Ken, I'm not sure, and well, I think the two of us talked. There are companies that specialize in handling our historic buildings. We've got a courthouse, which is gonna be tricky. There is a company in Strongsville that I've reached out to in the past. That's what they specialize in. Can you identify some companies to help us to determine, as we're helping Chardon to figure out what the future of the courthouse is gonna be, because that's gonna be a tricky one. We want it to be graceful in terms of how that's handled and everything. Put us in touch with some guys, that's what they do, so we know what some options are. We can start talking about, you know, what can that be? We just discovered in our deed arrangement that we were always operating under the false perception that there was a deed restriction, that always has to be a courthouse. And preliminary look at that, apparently that's not the case necessarily. And so we're gonna study that a little bit more, but that may open things up for some more options, I think, which is good. If that's in fact true and so on and so forth. But I think it'd be
Skip, just to be clear, we were somebody with construction expertise for historical buildings or redevelopment expertise, because we're almost putting the cart before the horse before we decide which method we're gonna go down, and do we wanna package this all together?
Well,
That's the only question.
the thought, at least my thought on this, is this: we've got a courthouse that we're gonna be leaving, because we're gonna be building a new courthouse. And so, that's a historic building. It was built in 1809? 1868, built in 1868. Could make a good something, we just don't know what that something is. The company I talked to specialized in finding the future for historic buildings. So they would come in and take a look at the building and say, okay, this is gonna make a great winery, this is gonna make a great whatever, museum, whatever. That's what they specialized in.
Okay.
And so when they came in and they took a look at that building, they can analyze the culture, where its setting is, so on and so forth, and say, okay, here's some options that you have available to you. And then we can work with Chardon to determine what the future of that courthouse is gonna be.
Do they do a market analysis for different industries then?
I don't know exactly how they work, because we had a preliminary, high-level
Yeah.
conversation about it.
Because that would be the most important thing to most developers, is what would the market support? And that's what developers, there's, dozens who do historic buildings in our region.
Well, part of what they did was they know about grants available to maintain historic buildings. And let's say hypothetically that we conveyed title or whatever to the building over the city of Chardon. We could assist them, work together, whatever, to maintain that as a historic site. And then we'd find grant dollars to do that, it'd be renovated or whatever they come up with as the options. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be developed into something, because there are certain historic sites that are converted into another purpose. And so that's what they specialize in, is taking a look at what those other purposes might be. In some cases, it's retained by government, and it just is converted into something else. I mean, we had a very preliminary conversation, and they were selling me on their strengths in terms of understanding the historic building marketplace and what that looked like. So I had one conversation, it didn't go anywhere, but.
Let me maybe recommend, because that courthouse could be a very substantial project in itself. So there are a couple of ways we could approach it. One, we'd be happy to help you in the city of Chardon do some due diligence, to suggest maybe some consultants or some of the next steps that should be taken. But certainly then it's gonna come down to the same thing we're talking about with the administration building. You know, what approach would we take for that project? Is it a P3? Is it, will you self-manage it? So that, that would have to get to the next level, or is it packaged together in the administration project? So, again, we're talking about another substantial project, so, it's gotta take its steps also.
It might be a phenomenal market, we just don't know.
Yeah.
Because we don't have
Well-
the experience to know whether a building that was built in 1868, what its market value is.
And if I might just add, having done a lot of this in my career, your county could also go out and do an RFP for that particular building. And you don't have to award, but it might be a good way for you just to find out what people have in mind, is by having them do an RFP and figure out what would people do with this. And then you don't necessarily have to award to anyone. You can decide you're gonna regroup and you want, one particular idea strikes the city of Chardon and says, well, this is fantastic, we wanna get more into this. And then you can go back and say, okay, now we wanna do an RFP and just for that particular purpose. So it's something to think about, is that you could go through a process just to get ideas of, request for qualifications, who really knows what they're doing. But I will tell you that to retain ownership as a government, that cuts off a lot of tax credits because, private ownership is eligible for tax credits where governments, can't really get that. So you'd have to have either a P3 or a private ownership to really be able to get the most lucrative money available to redevelop a historic building.
See, that's that kind of advice. I mean, we're kind of ignorant on this because we just haven't got the experience yet.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
But that's where we
area.
could use a little help. The other stuff is easy, the building and,
Oh, yeah.
CMA, CMR stuff, that's all easy
It's all,
stuff.
yeah.
Courthouse is gonna be.
July, August, we'll be done.
Somewhere.
Well, I suspect you'd have the same issue across the street in the annex buildings, because some of those are old enough that they would be eligible for tax credits, and somebody could come in and combine the two and say, well, I can put some new retail in the front, I can put some offices upstairs, I could turn the courthouse building into a B&B or a coffee shop, but whatever it may be, there are a million alternatives that could be explored. And you really need people who do it for a living and looking at the entire package, not just piecemeal.
Okay, we've actually
Be
been
careful
approached-
about that.
We've actually been approached by some folks who had interest in town.
Yeah,
And so,
Sure.
they're seeing the potential.
and that's all part of the marketing that would come later in the process. Where we go to national market to sell stuff, we get a much wider view than just Northeast Ohio. We'll get a lot of people coming in from around the country interested in a project of this scope.
Okay, Elon Musk would probably love to. He could put a tube down there and this hyperloop thing, ship people in Cleveland.
Well, his brother's out at Pinecrest, so
Yeah.
you don't know.
All right, well, I think, if we don't need anything formal to move forward, then
Yeah, the only other thing I was gonna bring up before we wrap this conversation off is we'd asked Bowen to do the fourth option at the city's request. And if you guys wanted to talk about that for a minute, you guys could provide some input.
Well, we submitted a proposal to you, I think it was late last week.
Right.
We're happy to do that. We understand the basic constraints and what the city would be looking for. Again, as we talked on the phone, we eventually need to know the specific pieces of land that would be available to us to lay out new structures on, even if it means demolition of something that exists today. We need to know that before we started.
Right.
We would do the same thing we did for the presentations we did a few weeks ago. We'd do a general site layout with block diagrams showing all the different departments, where they exist, whether it's on the ground floor, or this would probably be a multi-level structure, where parking would be to accommodate all the needs. And then we'd run a cost estimate as well on that scenario. So we give you then it would be apples to apples, it would be the same scenario that we did for options 1 and 2.
Right, right. So just to refresh your memory, that, you know, I mean, the overall scope of what Bowen has done on this phase of the whole process, which we're talking about today, doing the final steps in terms of delivery and financing and all that. But the original cost to do the 3 options that you had asked them to do was just under $24,000. And what they've proposed to do the 4th option is about $8,400 by itself. So I guess, you know, in the city and brought out the idea of there being some cost sharing on that. I guess, you know, we need to have some discussion on where you guys are at, whether you feel this is something they should bear on their own, given what it is, or something you guys want to talk about that, or talk about it next week, how we want to handle it. I just want to bring that up so with Bowen here, we can kind of get a sense of how we're moving forward.
In fairness to Tim, I think it would be, good to have him here also in that discussion. I'm open to discussion on it. I know that we've made a big commitment. The problem is that, in fairness to Bowen, they knew what their 3 options were to be able to calculate a cost. And we probably, if we would have had a 4th option, or that would have been voiced at the time, our number would have been less because of the scope of, just now they're gonna have to recreate that wheel.
Right.
So, I know I talked to you this morning, briefly about the information there, and I just kind of want to take a little bit more time to look at the numbers and just see what makes sense and what doesn't.
Yeah, I think just kind of we had some preliminary discussions with the mayor, Jerry and I did a week or so ago, and maybe it requires a few more discussions on the real practicality of what's available and how that might possibly end up being competitive from a cost standpoint with what these guys have already looked at. Because I don't know enough about it to be able to say, yeah, this is worth spending money on because this is a very viable option. I'm just not sure about that. I don't know if we can have a further discussion on that, or if you have any information you'd like to bring up right now.
I just don't want to be kicking this 4th option kicking the can down the road too far,
Right.
and then be told that it's too late.
Right, right.
I mean, we can have another meeting, but we need to do it, because we don't want this 4th option to hold up your project.
Right.
But we would still like this 4th option fully looked at.
From my purpose, and I'm with Ralph on this, Tim's not here, and this is my last meeting today, unfortunately. I'll be in that side of the room. Yeah, I will. Oh, you got my chair in the hallway? Okay.
Yeah, that's right, at the hallway.
Glenn's got a special seat for me he's putting up.
We're gonna sell popcorn too.
I'll have my drone in here flying around. But relative to, I don't think we should make a final decision today, but $8,400 isn't too much for Chardon to bear. I would, at least from my perspective, I don't think this project needs to be delayed any further. We need to be moving forward, do the calculations, so on and so forth. If there is another option that is practical, and I can't understand how that might be, because if you're gonna buy property, demolish property, the costs are gonna go pretty significantly up. So I just don't understand how that might work out. I wanna remain open-minded on it. But if it could happen, the proposal can certainly be done. Bowen can certainly do the study as we're going through this whole calculation process. And we've not taken any money out of pocket. It's gonna be probably, a year probably before we actually have to start committing dollars. So there's a lot of time in order to get any other options on the table. And if there's something that surprises us and pops up, all is well and good. But from my perspective, we can't delay. We need to move this ball forward and keep this on track, because projects like this tend to go into the ditch because you can't make a decision. And so you need to make decisions and move forward. And you make a decision, you make that decision right. And that's an old saying, management saying that I heard 1,000 times. So, go ahead.
How long would it take to complete option 4?
I would say, once we got the go-ahead, I'm thinking about 3 weeks, maybe 3 to 4 weeks at the most. We'd have to do understand the site, or the properties that are available to us, actually do the layout, study them, modify them, change them, and once we're comfortable with them, then have our estimator run costs on them, so that takes a little bit of time as well. So I'd say 3 to 4 weeks tops.
Well, given the number, the $84 number, do you think that's something your council would consider looking at, just shouldering that, given what we've already spent? Because that's kind of the first reality check.
I can't speak for council.
Yeah.
I mean, it indicated we would do half.
Yeah.
But I can take that back to them.
I think that would be good, because what's the county's already invested thus far. I mean, just what I think I'm hearing here is they're feeling like, given the amount of money, if you feel this is a real viable option and you don't want to close the door, you want the county to take a look at it, I don't think that's a bad investment for the city to make.
I will make the ask.
Okay.
I just want to point out from an economic development perspective, I just heard what option 4 was. I wasn't aware of it, but from an economic development perspective, in my entire career, we frequently would take large employers and try to put them in places to support that area. So if you look at the warehouse district before RTA moved into that area, so some of you may not remember what the warehouse district looked like, but it was a bunch of abandoned buildings. By adding that density of employees to the area, it supported all the restaurants, et cetera, in that area. And so having the ability to put all your employees into an area where you're gonna have that retail and restaurants will support the area immensely as compared to a site that might be further away. So it's something that everyone should really give a lot of consideration to, because it could strengthen your community.
Well, our community is Geauga County. Our community is not Chardon.
Well-
As much as I want to give deference to Chardon, our community, we've got 93,000 residents in Geauga County to think of. And so there's going to be a lot of prosperity brought to Geauga County in building these buildings. We've got all the construction costs. In addition to that, we've got 35 acres south of Chardon. We are not leaving Chardon. And so, because by law, we're required to stay in Chardon, we wouldn't leave anyway. But just to your point, from a density standpoint, that density is not leaving. We're not moving to Cleveland,
Right.
and we're not moving to Pennsylvania. We're staying in Geauga County. And so all of that development and all that traffic and all that kind of stuff is going to stay right here in Geauga County, and it's going to stay in Chardon. And so I'm going to make that parting point.
And I think that's what this option or this study would tell, because, you know, certainly if the costs end up being very similar, that's something to consider. If the costs end up being hugely higher, then yeah, at some point you gotta say, well, you know, fiscal prudence says, you know, that might be nice, but we can't be spending millions of dollars a year on something like that. But it could be close. That's the idea of the study to tell us.
Thank you for all the work you've done. You've done good work. We chose well.
Well, we appreciate that.
So,
Yeah.
and, we like your partners, and I think we're going to have a good result into this.
Good. Well, we'll take these next steps. We'll get back to you after the new year, and we appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just in closing, if the city did decide to move forward with that money, just so that we would be in a, you know, so that there is no delay, is that something then that you guys would be able to work out an agreement then to pass it on with them to be able to do that? Just so that we wouldn't have to wait to have you come back here for a whole nother meet and greet to try to get this done. If Chardon were to go back to their council and say it's gonna cost us $8,400 to get this passed, and there's an agreement across the board to do this, can you guys then just move forward with Chardon directly, or does it have to be through us?
That's a good question. So I guess the easiest way, I don't know how you would work with Chardon, but the easiest way for us would be to do an amendment to our contract and add this as an additional service.
That's what the document is. It's a change of
Okay.
service agreement. It's just a change order, basically.
However, if that doesn't work, that means you've got to have an agreement and get paid by Chardon. If that doesn't work, then if council passes this, then we could certainly get under contract with them.
Okay.
Yeah, if you thought it was easier.
And
That'd
we
probably
would-
be cleaner if that
We
was
would
possible.
close
be
our
okay.
contract with you with this final report.
Right.
We would fulfill our requirement, that's it. And then we would start a relationship with Chardon.
Okay.
I don't know how, but, you know, it's all part of the same project really, but it would just be two different entities that we would be
It
comfortable.
probably would be, I didn't even think about us having to have an agreement with Chardon, so there's gonna have to be an agreement either way.
Yes.
It might be a cleaner agreement if you just had your agreement with Chardon.
Yeah, okay,
So,
it's not a problem with
but
us.
I don't know, and I won't be part of that decision. We can ask Laura to look into that, I suppose.
I think we'll wait to hear back from Dave, direction, and then, yeah, if we need to set up just a small agreement with the city, then we'll do it. That's not a problem.
Yeah. Cool, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Happy New Year.
Yeah, same to you.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
Take care.
You too, good to see you. After the first of the year, let's get into about some questions on your board stuff.
Okay, absolutely. Yep.
Best of luck. See you again.
Oh, that's right.
It's good to see you. Thank you so much. You guys have been phenomenal, always.
Thank you, appreciate it.
We closed the work session. Oh, it's those extras. Thank you.
Dave, nice to see you again. Dave Ford here.
Oh, really?
My daughter just got married. Oh, great. My daughter good?
That's really good.
Seriously, Ken, you guys always great job all the time. You guys are great people.
We appreciate it. This is a great project.
Yeah, Rob, sure.
Got it right there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, wish you guys a happy New Year.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
And you're gonna go to planning meetings as an observer, right? I'm gonna have to get a few of those.
Excuse us.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
We're not done.
Thank you.
I have a pile there. But wait, there's more. I have a pile.
What happened to 6 p.m. journey?
Oh, yes, yes.
Two actions from the executive session.
Okay, yep.
We'll start there. The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board reject the recommendation of the hearing officer, and the decision of the Board is to not issue any discipline to the employee.
Second.
Commissioner Clickwell?
Aye.
The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board remove Christine Bacon from paid administrative leave and return to work effective December 28, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Clickwell?
Aye.
The next thing I have is the resolution.
Do we want an authorization?
Laura, do you want to, Dave's asking for authorization for the resolution for the CIC.
Okay.
If they want to, they can move forward, and if the CIC wants to make any additional adjustments to it, we can always amend the resolution.
Okay.
But if they wanted to move forward today, they could.
Yeah.
Yes, no?
Without Tim here, I don't know.
So the resolution would basically be,
It's to start the process to convey the JFS property to the CIC for economic development purposes for them to then work with Geauga.
Well, actually, the CIC,
and have you had a discussion?
the CIC is the county's agent, so we're not conveying it to the CIC. The CIC
just
will
acting as the
be
agent. Okay,
conveying it on
thank you.
behalf of the county.
And you've reviewed all of this already, Laura?
I don't have any issues with it. We are waiting to hear back from Ken Korosik, the attorney for the CIC, and maybe just because of the time of year, he wasn't able to get back to us.
Okay.
So if the board decides to approve the resolution, it may be that if we have to make any minor changes, we may have to come back to you and amend it. That's the only thing. So we're trying not to hold up the process, but I just wanted to make you aware of the fact
Okay.
we may have to make some additional changes to it if necessary, or it may
Okay.
be fine.
And have you talked to Tim about it also?
Yeah,
And
he's
comfortable with
he's
everything? So that's fine. And, go ahead and make a motion.
Yeah, I'll second. I'm more comfortable with the fact we're not actually transferring the property to the CIC.
No.
We have a Commissioner Clickwell.
Yes.
Aye.
resolution.
Okay.
And then, this is a little odd, but, I need I'm asking the board to approve and authorize the county administrator to execute resolution number 18-176 honoring Commissioner Walter M. Skip Claypool for his dedication and commitment to the residents of Geauga County.
I'm not moving.
You're authorizing me to sign something, that's all.
Yeah, I'm authorizing Dave.
Second.
Commissioner Claypool?
Yes.
Commissioner Spillier?
Thank you.
It'd be a little odd for you to,
It is very odd.
this is definitely a unique situation for me.
Now, do I get to read it since I get to sign it?
Sure.
Okay, all right. This is a resolution honoring Commissioner Walter M. Skip Claypool for his dedication and commitment to the residents of Geauga County. Whereas Walter M. Skip Claypool was born in May 1951 and grew up in Geneva before serving in the United States Air Force from April 1971 to April 1980, attended the University of Wisconsin earning a bachelor's degree in math, computer science, and regional analysis and marketing, and whereas Walter M. Skip Claypool has lived for the last 9 years in Chesterland with his lovely wife Pam, and whereas Walter M. Skip Claypool was appointed as commissioner and served 5 months in 2012, and was elected to serve as commissioner from January 1st, 2015 to December 31st, 2018, and whereas Walter M. Skip Claypool was and is a strong fiscal conservative who throughout his tenure put in many hours constantly looking for ways to do more with less, worked hard on securing funding from NOACA for Geauga County roads, bridges, and safe travels for the Amish community, was the key official ensuring that state dollars earmarked for helping Geauga families continue to be locally managed through the Geauga Community Action Incorporated, was involved in updating the plan for Geauga-Trumbull Solid Waste Management District, and was instrumental in getting a recycling facility here in Geauga County, and whereas Walter M. Skip Claypool has worked hard with his fellow commissioners on building new, safer county office facilities and looks forward to seeing them to be completed in the future, and whereas Walter M. Skip Claypool likes to spend time with his children and grandchildren, enjoys hunting, making bread, and decorating cakes. And now therefore be it resolved that the Geauga County Board of Commissioners wishes to honor and thank Walter M. Skip Claypool for his dedication and commitment to the residents of Geauga County. Be it further resolved that this resolution becomes part of the permanent record of the Board of Commissioners of Geauga County, Ohio. And it's my honor to get to sign this one.
You have to sign the inside one day.
Thanks for the resolution.
Okay.
So what I did, Skip, is Tim unfortunately wasn't able to be here, but we just had a, it's not the value of the gift, but sometimes. So what we've got today is a couple things here. Kind of best explain what Skip Claypool we was all about here. We got a couple of things here. Tim and I had put together a presentation that we wanted to give Skip in the sense of it's not the value of the gift, it's what it means. And so what we did is we picked out a few items here. One being probably what everybody knows Skip probably best about, and that reflects to the screwdriver. Because you could really take something good and really screw it up. Or you could take something that's really screwed up and really fix it. We've got a level, because I don't care what Skip Claypool has ever been involved in, as hot as the situation could have been, you have always kept a level head. And I've admired that with you from day one. So I come from the public service as far as policing, and in police work for the biggest part of my life, and you always end up with a pistol at the end of your service or a rifle. In the fire service you end up with a fire axe. But I think that today set a new trend for you as commissioner of the hammer. And I picked this for two reasons. It's got two sides. One is the prying side, but you always had the gift of being able to pry into something. And I didn't care what it was, but you found a way to get your grip into something to pull it apart. But the other end is always to put that nail in the wall and to pin it down. And I can't say enough. So you're going to be missed. I've learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And the fishing box, because I expect you to be at my house fishing. So,
Wow.
God bless you. You've done well.
Thanks. Very well. So it has been my honor to serve this county. And anybody that I think put up with me in this office, and they put up with a lot, knows that I put in quite a bit of time and gave everything my all. And so I'm able to walk out of here knowing that I gave it my best. And by the way, I didn't run for the paycheck. I ran to make a difference. And so Tom and Diane, slide over, because I'm going to be sitting in the audience and I'll still be out there asking questions and still being involved in a lot of different ways. And I still have some future plans for possible other elected offices. And so I want to thank the people in Geauga County for putting me in the office and seeing me through all of that, through all these years. And to all my friends who happen to have come today to see my last day here, I really love you guys. So we've been through a lot together. I get regular calls from each of you, particularly Dell Anise, who calls me and bugs me all the time. How come you didn't do this? How come you didn't do that? Why did you make this decision? What's that all about? And so it has been fun, and I have enjoyed working with both Tim and Ralph immensely. This county is well served by the county commissioners that we currently have. Good luck to Jim Dvorak moving into this office. And I know he'll do well with these two guys because they'll keep him on the straight and narrow. But this county has been well served by both Ralph and Tim. We've worked our butts off to end wasteful programs. It's not all done, but there's some work yet to do on that. But we ended a bunch of wasteful programs. We've got the county set on the right direction in a number of things, including the county offices, which past commissioners' offices have tried to do many times and just didn't make it happen. And I think we're moving in a positive direction on that. And so I can't say enough about Ralph and Tim and this entire staff. This staff is marvelous. And finally, after all these years, I had an impact so they wore a bow tie. I worked on them, and it's finally happened.
There's been a couple strange comments given to us about these. I'll tell you that.
With all that said, I mean, that's enough said about that. I've really enjoyed being here and being a commissioner, and I thank everybody for that opportunity and for being able to serve this county and work with the great staff that we have, because we have a great staff and two great commissioners. So thanks, I appreciate all of you.
I have one more action for you to take.
Okay.
The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board approve and execute Resolution 18-177 to request NOACA amend the Code of Regulations to reflect the composition of Geauga County to represent two commissioners and the county engineer.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Boccia?
Yes.
Commissioner Case?
Aye.
I get some private seconds. Okay, move to adjourn.
So we're heading is just pulled up.
Question back here.
Yes.
Oh, I don't have a question, I just have a comment, if I
Okay.
could do it, if it's you're
Sure.
over with the business.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to thank Skip for his service, and we're going to miss you, and it's going to be a loss to this community. You've been so knowledgeable and resourceful in many issues, and most of all, you and fiscally responsible, but most of all, you're a man of honesty and integrity, and I can attest to that on a personal level. So thank you very much, Skip, and we'll miss you.
Thank you, Bill.
Anyone else? Sure.
I just want to reiterate what Dal said. She said everything I wanted to say is it's been a pleasure working with Skip and knowing him for these past 9 or some years that I have. But thank you again for all the hard work you put into this. I know how much you've dedicated your life to this. Thank you again.
Well, and I think it shows. I mean, I could tell you that I've always had a lot of respect for Skip, and never like I've got, this year as far as, to be able to be here all the way to the end and to be as involved and engaged and caring to the last minute of the meeting, It's listen, they don't make them that way anymore. And I really respect it dearly.
Thank you. I'm fighting back the tears, so I can't say anymore.
All right, thank you.